Aileen Wuornos, one of America's most notorious female serial killers, carved a bloody path through Florida's highways between 1989 and 1990, leaving a complex legacy that continues to captivate and disturb. Working as a prostitute along major roadways, she targeted men who solicited her services, turning encounters into deadly confrontations. Wuornos maintained that her killings were acts of self-defense, claiming each victim had attempted to assault or rape her. But the consistency and brutality of her actions suggested deeper psychological motivations. Living a transient lifestyle, often sleeping in motels or abandoned cars, she operated on the margins of society, which both enabled her crimes and delayed her capture. Over the course of a year, Wuornos killed 7 men, all middle-aged and typically strangers, shooting them at close range with a .22 caliber pistol and often taking their money, vehicles, or personal items. Her victims were found in remote areas, their bodies riddled with bullets, sparking widespread fear and media frenzy across Florida. The methodical nature of her crimes, luring men, killing them, and disposing of their belongings, demonstrated a chilling pragmatism, though Wuornos' erratic behavior and confessions later revealed a troubled psyche. Her ability to blend into the transient world of truck stops and highways allowed her to evade law enforcement, even as the body count rose and a nationwide manhunt intensified. Wuornos' capture came in January 1991 at a biker bar in Daytona Beach, where police, acting on a tip, apprehended her after connecting her to stolen vehicles and witness descriptions. During her trial, she confessed to the murders but insisted they were defensive acts, a claim met with skepticism due to the pattern of robberies and her inconsistent statements. Convicted on multiple counts of first-degree murder, she was sentenced to death and executed by lethal injection in 2002. Her life inspired the critically acclaimed film Monster, which earned Charlize Theron an Academy Award for portraying Wuornos' complexity as both victim and predator. Wuornos' case remains a touchstone in criminology, raising questions about trauma, gender, and the justice system's handling of marginalized figures. Mary Ann Cotton, often regarded as Britain's first documented female serial killer, terrorized the working-class communities of northern England during the mid-19th century. As a nurse and housekeeper in County Durham, she moved through a series of marriages and households, leveraging her knowledge of medicine and poisons to devastating effect. Cotton's unassuming demeanor and ability to blend into the gritty industrial society of Victorian England allowed her to operate undetected for nearly 2 decades. She married multiple times, often presenting herself as a devoted wife and mother, while exploiting the era's rudimentary medical understanding and lax oversight of suspicious deaths to amass modest financial gains through insurance payouts and inheritances. Cotton is suspected of killing up to 21 people, including 3 of her 4 husbands, several stepchildren, her mother, and a lover, primarily through arsenic poisoning, which mimicked common ailments like gastric fever. Her method was insidious. She administered small, cumulative doses of arsenic, often in tea or food, causing victims to suffer prolonged, agonizing symptoms that appeared natural to untrained doctors. The high mortality rates of the time, especially among the poor, meant her crimes initially went unnoticed, as grieving families rarely suspected foul play. Cotton's pattern of moving to new towns after deaths in her household further delayed scrutiny, as she left behind a trail of seemingly unrelated tragedies across Durham and beyond. Her crimes unraveled in 1872, when a doctor grew suspicious after the sudden death of her stepson, Charles Cotton, and an autopsy revealed arsenic in his system. Investigations uncovered a pattern of deaths tied to Cotton's presence, including the rapid demise of her husbands and other relatives, many of whom had life insurance policies. Arrested and tried for the murder of her stepson, she was convicted in 1873 and hanged at Durham Gaol, her execution drawing intense public attention. Cotton's case shocked Victorian society, exposing the dangers of unregulated poisons and inadequate death investigations. Her legacy as a calculating poisoner endures, with her story inspiring ballads, books, and ongoing debates about her motives, cementing her as a chilling figure in criminal history. Elizabeth Báthory, a Hungarian noblewoman born in 1560, emerged as one of history's most infamous figures due to her alleged atrocities in the late 16th and early 17th centuries. As a member of the powerful Báthory family, she wielded significant influence, residing in the imposing Countess castle in what is now Slovakia. Married to Count Ferenc Nadasdy, she managed vast estates and oversaw a large household, which provided her with the resources and privacy to carry out her alleged crimes. Báthory is accused of luring young women, mostly peasant girls and minor noblewomen, to her castle under pretexts such as employment as servants or educational opportunities for noble daughters. These women, drawn by promises of a better life, instead met horrific fates at the hands of Báthory and her trusted accomplices. The accusations against Báthory paint a chilling picture of systematic cruelty, with claims that she tortured and killed hundreds of victims, potentially up to 650, though historians debate the exact number due to inconsistent records and politically motivated testimonies. Her alleged methods were gruesome, reportedly involving prolonged torture sessions that included beatings with clubs, burning with hot irons, and mutilation with knives or needles. Some accounts, now considered possibly exaggerated, claim she bathed in her victims' blood to preserve her youth, a legend that has fueled her enduring mythos as the Blood Countess. Báthory's aristocratic status shielded her from scrutiny for years, as local authorities hesitated to challenge a noblewoman of her rank. Her crimes reportedly escalated after her husband's death in 1604, when she had even greater control over her household and resources. In 1610, Báthory's reign of terror ended when Hungarian authorities, prompted by persistent rumors and pressure from the church and rival nobles, raided Countess castle. They arrested Báthory and several servants, uncovering evidence of torture and murder, though the precise details remain clouded by the era's judicial biases. Due to her noble status, Báthory was never formally tried or convicted. Instead, she was confined to house arrest in her castle, walled up in a set of rooms until her death in 1614. Her accomplices faced brutal executions, fueling the scandal's notoriety. Báthory's case has since inspired countless books, films, and historical debates, with some scholars arguing she was a victim of political conspiracies, while others view her as a sadistic predator. Her story remains a haunting exploration of power, privilege, and the blurred line between fact and legend in criminal history. Amelia Dyer, a trained nurse in Victorian England, became one of history's most prolific serial killers through her grim role as a baby farmer in the late 19th century. Operating in Bristol, Reading, and London, she exploited the era's social stigmas surrounding unwed mothers, offering to adopt or care for their infants in exchange for substantial fees. These desperate mothers, often impoverished and shunned, entrusted their children to Dyer, believing she would provide them a better life. Instead, Dyer saw the infants as a source of profit, using her nursing skills and knowledge of drugs to orchestrate a chilling enterprise that spanned over 2 decades. Her ability to move frequently and operate under aliases allowed her to evade suspicion in an era where infant mortality was tragically common. Dyer's crimes centered on the systematic murder of infants, with estimates suggesting she killed over 400 babies, though she was only convicted of 1 murder due to limited physical evidence. Her methods were cold and calculated. She often starved the children or administered lethal doses of opium-based laudanum, a drug she obtained easily as a nurse. The bodies were wrapped in cloth or paper and disposed of in rivers, most notably the Thames, or buried in obscure locations. Dyer's operation thrived because authorities rarely investigated the deaths of poor children, and her victims' small size made concealment straightforward. Her greed-driven killings went undetected for years, as she amassed wealth from desperate parents while leaving a trail of missing infants across multiple cities. The unraveling of Dyer's crimes began in 1896, when a baby's body, wrapped in paper bearing her address, was fished out of the River Thames. Police traced the evidence to Dyer, uncovering a pattern of suspicious infant disappearances linked to her various aliases and residences. Arrested and tried for murder, she was convicted based on overwhelming evidence, including testimonies from mothers and physical items like the wrapping tape used on her victims. Dyer was hanged at Newgate Prison in 1896. Her execution, drawing widespread public outrage. Her case spurred reforms in child adoption laws and greater oversight of baby farming practices, exposing the vulnerabilities of Victorian society's underclass. Amelia Dyer's legacy endures as a stark warning of unchecked greed and the societal failures that enabled her atrocities. Belle Gunness, a Norwegian-American immigrant, became one of America's most notorious serial killers through her deadly schemes in Indiana during the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Settling on a farm in LaPorte, Indiana, after arriving in the United States, she established herself as a widow seeking companionship and financial security. Gunness placed lonely hearts advertisements in newspapers, luring wealthy suitors with promises of marriage and a comfortable life on her prosperous farm. Behind her carefully crafted image as a hard-working, devout woman lay a ruthless predator who used charm and deception to target men, as well as members of her own household, for profit. Gunness is believed to have killed over 40 people, including 2 husbands, several of her children, and numerous suitors who arrived at her farm with cash and assets. Her methods were varied and brutal. She poisoned victims with strychnine or chloroform, bludgeoned them with heavy objects like meat cleavers, or dismembered and disposed of bodies in gruesome ways, such as burning them or burying them in her farm's hog pen. The isolation of her rural property allowed her to conceal her crimes, while her practice of dismembering remains or feeding them to pigs ensured little evidence remained. Her greed-driven killings went undetected for years, as she amassed wealth from her victims' savings and insurance policies. The end of Gunness's reign came in 1908 when her farmhouse mysteriously burned down, revealing a horrific scene. Multiple bodies were found buried on the property, including those of her suitors and children. A headless female body, initially thought to be Gunness, was discovered in the fire, but discrepancies in its size raised suspicions that she had faked her death and fled. Despite extensive investigations, Gunness was never found, and her fate remains one of history's enduring mysteries. The discovery of her murder farm shocked the nation, drawing crowds to the site and sparking sensational media coverage. Gunness's legacy as a cunning and elusive killer continues to fascinate, with her story inspiring true crime narratives and debates about whether she truly escaped justice. Jane Toppin, a nurse in late 19th century Massachusetts, earned the chilling moniker Jolly Jane for her deceptive cheerfulness while committing heinous acts as one of America's earliest known medical serial killers. Working in hospitals and private homes around Boston, she leveraged her professional skills and access to drugs to prey on vulnerable patients, friends, and acquaintances. Toppin began her killing spree in the 1880s, using her position to gain trust, often presenting herself as a compassionate caregiver. Her ability to blend into the medical world, combined with the era's limited forensic knowledge, allowed her to operate undetected for nearly 2 decades, targeting those who depended on her care. Toppin confessed to killing at least 31 people, though the true number may be higher, driven by a disturbing obsession with watching her victims die. Her preferred method was poisoning, using morphine and atropine to induce slow, agonizing deaths, often administering the drugs in small doses to prolong suffering. She reportedly derived a thrill from lying beside her victims as they succumbed, a detail that shocked investigators and revealed the depths of her sadistic impulses. Her targets included hospital patients, elderly clients, and even personal connections like her landlord and foster sister, making her crimes unpredictable and widespread. The lack of rigorous oversight in medical settings at the time enabled her to move between jobs, leaving a trail of unexplained deaths. In 1901, Toppin's crimes unraveled when she poisoned an entire family under her care, the Davises, prompting suspicion from surviving relatives and a doctor who ordered toxicology tests. Arrested and tried, she confessed with unsettling candor, admitting to a compulsion to kill and claiming insanity to avoid execution. Found not guilty by reason of insanity, she was committed to Taunton State Hospital, where she spent the rest of her life until her death in 1938. Her case exposed vulnerabilities in the healthcare system, leading to calls for better regulation of nurses and drug access. Topin's chilling legacy as a predator disguised as a caregiver endures, with her story serving as a grim cautionary tale about trust and oversight in medicine. Griselda Blanco, known as the Black Widow and godmother of cocaine, rose to infamy as a ruthless drug lord in the Miami drug trade of the 1970s and 1980s. A Colombian immigrant who settled in the United States, she built a sprawling cocaine empire, overseeing the smuggling of massive quantities of drugs from Colombia to Florida. Blanco's cunning and ambition allowed her to dominate a male-driven underworld, forging alliances with the Medellin cartel and establishing distribution networks that fueled Miami's cocaine boom. Her charisma and business acumen masked a brutal streak as she orchestrated a wave of violence to maintain control and eliminate rivals. Blanco is linked to hundreds of murders, including those of competitors, associates, and even bystanders caught in her turf wars, with estimates suggesting her orders led to dozens, if not hundreds, of deaths. Her signature method was the drive-by motorcycle assassination, a tactic she reportedly pioneered, which allowed hitmen to strike swiftly and escape. She targeted anyone who crossed her, from disloyal lieutenants to innocent witnesses, and her willingness to order killings of entire families underscored her merciless reputation. Blanco's operations thrived amid Miami's chaotic drug scene, where corruption and weak law enforcement enabled her to evade capture for years, amassing wealth and power while leaving a trail of bloodshed. Arrested in 1985 by the DEA in California, Blanco faced charges for drug trafficking and murder, though prosecutors struggled to pin specific killings on her due to her use of intermediaries. Convicted on drug charges, she served nearly 2 decades in prison before being deported to Colombia in 2004. In 2012, she was assassinated in Medellin by a motorcycle gunman, a poetic end mirroring her own tactics. Blanco's life inspired films, documentaries, and series like Cocaine Cowboys, cementing her as a larger-than-life figure in narco history. Her legacy highlights the devastating impact of the drug trade and the rare, fearsome presence of a woman at the helm of a criminal empire. Myra Hindley, one of Britain's most reviled criminals, gained infamy in the 1960s for her role in the Moors murders, a series of heinous crimes committed alongside her partner, Ian Brady, in northern England. A clerical worker in Manchester, Hindley met Brady in 1961, and their relationship quickly evolved into a toxic partnership driven by shared sadistic impulses and a fascination with control and power. Operating from their unassuming home, the couple meticulously planned and executed abductions, using Hindley's outwardly respectable demeanor to lure victims and evade suspicion. Her active participation in the crimes, coupled with her ability to blend into everyday life, made her a chilling figure whose actions shocked a nation unaccustomed to such depravity from a woman. Between 1963 and 1965, Hindley and Brady targeted 5 young victims, committing murders that combined abduction, torture, and disposal in the desolate Saddleworth Moor. Hindley played a critical role, often driving to locate victims or using her presence to gain their trust before handing them over to Brady. The couple buried their victims' bodies on the moor, a remote area that concealed their crimes for years. The calculated nature of their acts, including recording some victims' pleas and keeping mementos, revealed a chilling lack of remorse. Their crimes went undetected until 1965, when Brady's attempt to involve another accomplice led to a witness reporting suspicious behavior to the police, triggering an investigation. Arrested in October 1965, Hindley faced trial alongside Brady in 1966, where evidence, including photographs and audio recordings, horrified the public and cemented their guilt. Convicted of multiple murders, she was sentenced to life imprisonment without parole. Throughout her decades in prison, Hindley maintained a complex public image, initially showing defiance but later expressing remorse, though many doubted its sincerity. She died in 2002, never having secured release despite numerous appeals. The Moors murders left a lasting scar on British society, prompting reforms in victim support and policing. Hindley's legacy as a symbol of evil endures, with her case raising enduring questions about complicity, gender, and the psychology of extreme violence. Thank you for watching this deep dive into some of history's most notorious female serial killers. If you found this video insightful, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. For more historical true crime stories, hit the notification bell to stay updated.